Chelsea, to me, kind of dates with the white picket fence mentality. And I find that dating to be very dangerous.
I don't know why I'm in this weird Irina defense.
I don't understand it either. I'm like, okay, Kelly, go off.
I can't.
Let's talk about Love is Blind Season 4. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Julie, she's Kelly, and we're here to find love. If you like hearing two dating experts sharing unfiltered after-hour thoughts on movies and reality TV shows like The Bachelor and Love is Blind, hit the subscribe button to follow along and join the conversation. In this video, we're going to go couple by couple dissecting the relationships and giving our takes as relationship coaches on what we observed as their main challenges, why people did or didn't break up, and who we think is going to stay together for the long haul. So let's dive right in. Love is Blind is a dating reality show where participants try to form emotional connections without ever seeing each other, and then decide whether to get engaged and eventually married at the end. So they meet each other in the pods, they go on dates, they whittle down the dating pool, they get engaged to each other, they meet in person for the first time. Then they go on a honeymoon together. Then they live at apartments of everybody else from the experiment. Then the culmination of the entire season is where they have a wedding, which is when they actually decide if they're going to get married, and they get to choose if love is truly blind and they're going to have a relationship together.
Okay, let's get right into the first couple. Let's start on Kwame and Chelsea. Kwame and Chelsea's main storyline is that when they were in the pods, before they had all seen each other, Kwame was dating both Chelsea and Micah very seriously. It definitely seemed like he was strongly leaning toward Micah, and like Micah was the one that he really wanted to be with. And then Micah ends up breaking up with him to go be with Paul. And so Kwame is like very devastated, but decides to pursue things with Chelsea. They get engaged. And that love triangle continues to be kind of like a centerpiece of their storyline. There's also some tension in that Kwame will have to move from where he lives, which I believe is Portland, to where she lives, which is Seattle. And he's kind of upending his life to go move to where she is. She has a whole big family and community there. He's kind of moving there and will be alone, kind of starting over in terms of building a community. He works remote, and that's why they had made the decision to do it. But he seems to struggle throughout the season with this decision, and just in general with how much he is needing to sacrifice his lifestyle and elements of his life to kind of fit into Chelsea's life. And so that's kind of the main tension of their story. So I had a lot of strong thoughts about these two watching them throughout the season. It really did feel like Kwame seemed to be wrangling with a lot of indecision and apprehension and just a lot of sacrifice that he was having to make to be with Chelsea. And it seemed like every time he brought that up to her, she kind of dismissed it. She kind of would paper it over with, oh, we're so great. Don't throw away something so great. Like, this would be the greatest disappointment if you threw away something so great. Like, her attitude around it seemed very much like, okay, I hear that you have problems, so what? In fact, there were several times where he would bring up something that he was concerned about, and she would be like, welcome to marriage.
I feel like your anxiety is becoming my anxiety, you know? Like, I want to be very,
welcome to
let
marriage.
It happen. But I am compromising.
Welcome to marriage.
Which, by the way, I hate that as a phrase when someone brings up that they're having trouble, they're struggling with something is stressing them out, and you respond with, that's what marriage is like. It's like, oh, that's kind of like a bad vibe. You know, people do it to like make jokes about the fact that like, relationships are hard work, but the fact that relationships take work and take effort does not mean that you don't have to care when your partner is stressed out or having trouble. And it felt like Chelsea was like, I see that you're struggling, but relationships, you're supposed to struggle, so keep struggling. Like, deal with it. It was kind of what it felt like her attitude was around anything Kwame brought up. And she said that phrase, welcome to marriage, like several times throughout the season. And so it just, to me, felt like if I was Kwame, it's really frustrating because it feels like basically what she's saying is your stress and the struggles that you are dealing with, that's the norm. You should just expect to be this stressed. You should just expect that in this relationship, you're going to have hard times, and I'm not going to do anything to help you. I'm not going to do anything to, address your needs. You're going to just need to stomach it, suck it up, because that's just the kind of relationship that I believe in building. And to me, if I was Kwame, I would be a little bit, I would feel just dismissed. And it seemed like she had her vision of what a relationship is supposed to look like, and she just really expected him to just kind of slot right in. And I was kind of surprised by how much the internet seemed to like Chelsea. I felt like there was a lot of praise, a lot of people who thought that she was just, so real and so loving and et cetera, et cetera. But I honestly found her to be a little bit unsupportive and a little bit selfish in the way that she kind of, everything that happened, at least that we saw, and of course I acknowledge that the two of them say this in the final rose. What is it called? Not
the reunion. The live reunion.
I'm still in
bachelor honor brain. Yeah.
in the reunion scene, they talk about the fact that like, oh, you guys just saw these really scattered moments of our relationship. You didn't see the full thing. You saw maybe like 10% of everything that was happening in a relationship. So it sounds like it's possible that we were just given all of the moments where Kwame was doubting and Chelsea was being a little bit insensitive, and maybe that's just all we saw from them intentionally on the part of the editing and production. But based on what we saw, it felt like Chelsea was kind of coming in with this idea, this dream that she had of like what a marriage would be like for her and how it would fit into her life, how, her future husband would fit into her family's life, how her future husband would interact with her dog, what would it would all be like. It seemed like she had this very specific vision, and she was just finding someone to kind of slot into her vision, as opposed to meeting someone and together they co-create what that future could look like. It didn't feel like Kwame had a lot of say or a lot of ability to co-create with her. It seemed like Kwame was just kind of like, if I want to be with Chelsea, I have to just kind of do it the way that she wants to do it, because she has not a lot of interest in doing it the way I want to do it. And the thing that I think was the most bothersome to me about that was Chelsea made it seem like this is just how relationships are. This is just how it is. There are no kind of alternatives, which isn't true. This was just Chelsea wanted it a specific way, which is fine. Chelsea's allowed to want to have her relationships a specific way. But instead of making it clear that it was like, this is what I want and this is like how I want it to be, she made it seem like, well, Kwame, if you're ever going to be in a relationship, in a marriage, you're going to have to just be willing to do this for your wife, as if that is what it would be like in every relationship. And that's just not true. And so I thought that was a pretty unbalanced dynamic, and I was kind of surprised to see him say yes at the altar, frankly.
Oof, I'm still surprised. I really thought they did not have a good relationship, because it felt like and we could blame it on editing. We know there's so much that we're not seeing, but he was genuinely so devastated by Micah, and the way that he looked at Micah was not a way that he ever really looked at Chelsea. And the way that Chelsea, to me, kind of dates with the white picket fence mentality. And I find that dating to be very dangerous, where you're just, you have everything about your wedding picked out, your dress, your shoes, the cake, except the man, because there is no negotiation for that. It's truly about your dreams and what you want. And I felt like if she was choosing Kwame as much as, she said that she was, which was, I think and she was really hyping him up the entire season. The man really could do no wrong. And anything he did, he was amazing at it. Amazing singer, great at sex. All of these things that she kept putting him up on a pedestal. But I kept thinking, if you're really choosing Kwame, then you would be choosing him and his struggles and things that he's really bringing to the table, which is, I feel like my life is not here. I don't feel connected to myself. I feel like I'm kind of, being kind of pulled along in the current of your life, and my mom doesn't understand it. I feel disconnected. I'm struggling with these emotions from the love triangle that I was in from the experience. And Chelsea was like, I choose you, and I am the greatest person you're ever going to be with because I choose you so completely. But the nuance to that was, I choose this story with you so completely, and buckle up because you're in for the ride. And that to me just felt a little bit more like what you said. It wasn't a co-creation at all. The interesting thing for me is that, they got engaged. I mean, not just engaged, they got married, and they're still together a year later. So even though I didn't really agree with Chelsea's personality, I found her to be one of the more unlikable cast members for me. And I did not agree with how Kwame handled a lot of situations. I did love the way that he repaired his relationship with Chelsea and how he seemed all in with her. I liked his multi-layered apology to Chelsea, to her family members, and to everybody else that were, supporting the relationship. I could see that he truly understood that it was extremely disrespectful how he handled Micah, and that he was still processing a lot. And they do seem like a good couple, but I do wish that there was a little bit more of pressure on Chelsea to kind of be like, why were you not listening to him? Why were you just kind of like papering it over? And why were you forcing this happily ever after storyline so aggressively? Because it just felt like so many of the things that she was doing, she was like, I'm doing a boudoir like photo shoot, not because I want to do it with Kwame or Kwame wants to do it with me. I'm doing it because that was my dream when I was a little girl. So much of it felt like fantasy fulfillment, and it could have really been anyone besides Kwame, and then it would have just been the same situation. Yeah, absolutely.
It felt so not specific. This never felt like Kwame and Chelsea's relationship. It just felt like Chelsea's relationship with fill in the blank anyone, and because nothing about the relationship screams Kwame to me. Everything about it is Chelsea, and that is something to pay attention to in your real life relationships, right? If it feels like, and Kwame said this over and over throughout the season, that it felt like he was the one having to make all the compromise, and she really wasn't compromising very much or having to sacrifice very much. It was all him. He said that repeatedly, and it was never really addressed. We never saw Chelsea really grapple with that fact, and we never saw her ever really acknowledge like, oh, you're right, you are giving up a lot, and like, how can I make this feel more balanced for you? How can I make you feel like you are an active participant in this relationship instead of just someone who's getting pulled along for the ride? We never really saw her acknowledge that. And the funny thing is, in that reunion, they seemed like this like very buttoned up, perfect couple, but to me, something about it felt almost a little, I was like almost not creeped out, but like something about it felt like very like Stepford Wives, but the other way. As if Kwame had been like, it was almost like they had rehearsed this and they knew exactly the things that they were going to talk about and say, and I'm sure they did. I'm sure you think a lot about what you're going to say when you go into this live filming scenario. And it felt a little bit, they were very protective of their image as a happy couple. Both of them were very much like, we need to make it really clear to everyone that we are very, very into each other and happy. And everything they said throughout that reunion was in service of protecting that narrative. And in some ways, so you brought up Kwame's apology. I agree. I liked that he gave that multi-layered apology. However, what was really weird about that whole segment was Kwame never really acknowledged the fact that he really did love Micah and wanted to be with her and was attracted to her more than Chelsea in the pods, and that even when they got out of the pods and they met for the first time, he was attracted to Micah. He was flirting with Micah. He never said those words. He never admitted that that's why he was talking to Micah as much as he was. He was like, oh, well, she said that, she made that rude joke, and so I was just really upset. It was about my ego. And it's like, dude, it wasn't about your ego. We all saw that you and her were flirting there by the pool. You were touching and laughing, and you were interested to see what she was going to say. And this isn't all on Kwame. She was also being very, in this scene, this pool scene, she was being very
super inappropriate.
She was saying a lot of comments and making a lot of, the two of them were talking so much about how much they loved each other in the pods. Super inappropriate for them to be talking about that as much as they were. And they were both leaning in. They were enjoying this moment of getting to kind of see what's going on in that relationship. Kwame never really admitted that. In every conversation he had with Chelsea on screen throughout the season about that moment, he always made it seem like, oh, I just needed to get closure because she had upset me so much, and I needed to like talk to Micah because she made that rude joke, and I needed to like get that off my chest. He always made it seem like it was about the fact that he was mad at Micah for telling some joke. As a reminder, the reason they had the initiator of that conversation was Micah had told some joke about like cheers to a failed proposal with Kwame, and Kwame had been upset about it, and then the two of them sat down, but then the conversation continued because they were flirting, and they never really acknowledged that. They never really acknowledged the fact that Kwame was being inappropriate with his feelings for Micah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was weird in the reunion scene that Kwame kept trying to downplay his feelings for Micah, and he kept trying to downplay how much he wanted to be with her. And so he was like, oh yeah, I didn't handle my emotions well. It's like, it's not that you didn't handle your emotions well, it's that you liked that girl. And couples do this a lot where they will like look back on an unsavory part of their relationship and kind of spin it in a positive way. Like they'll spin it as if like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I knew all along that it was her. I was never questioning. Or like, oh, well, you know, he was just like starting to fall in love with me and he was just, that's it. They will make excuses for some kind of bad behavior that happened in the past or something that happened in the service of proving why they're such a good couple now, instead of just openly acknowledging like, hey, yeah, I was wavering at that time. And I really found it very weird that Kwame and Chelsea at no point this whole season ever really acknowledged that Kwame was wavering. It's weird to me because we all saw it. Like clearly he was wavering. And so it's super weird that they never discussed that. As opposed to like, for example, Zach and Bliss, who we'll get to, they're very open about the fact that Zach, you know, chose Irina first and was trying to be with Irina first. They talk about it very openly, but Kwame and Chelsea don't really seem like, in fact, Chelsea, in that conversation they aired where Chelsea was talking with Micah, like when they walk the dogs, in that scene where we see Chelsea and Micah kind of have this like closure conversation around like all of the weirdness that had happened in this love triangle. Chelsea's like, listen, I get it. You were threatened by me. I was threatened by you. And I was like, that's not really an accurate representation of that because Micah was never threatened by Chelsea. That never happened. Micah was the one who ultimately broke up with Kwame. And the fact that they kind of spun the story a little bit, I was just kind of perturbed by it. His reaction to Micah breaking up with him, like, I think said a lot about where he was mentally. It seemed like he really thought he was going to end up with Micah. So it's weird that they kind of have tried to spin the story a little bit, you know?
Yeah, totally. The reason why it feels so sensitive for Kwame and Chelsea to even touch is because Kwame was rejected. So it's not like and it was really one-sided. I genuinely believe that Micah, she liked having the upper hand. She liked knowing that she could flirt with Kwame because Paul and Micah never talked about it because it was never a contentious point because Micah, I don't think she was as into him as she was into the idea of someone being into her. And when things came down to it, she was like, well, I like Paul more and I'm choosing Paul. I'm sad to let you go, but it's not the sort of devastation that Kwame was really going through because that was real for him. He was genuinely investing a lot of his feelings into her, and she was more invested in the validation that, you know, he was offering. So to really go through the weeds of that, they have to have amazing communication skills, and I could be objective in saying that I don't believe Kwame and Chelsea have those very skills to be able to navigate those conversations and then to bring it to a public stage and do that gracefully. So it's better for them to like hold on to the mythology of you were going to break up with her, you guys are both leading towards it, and kind of because the relationship is quite messy, so they're able to kind of like, you know, smooth over a lot of that stuff. Totally. But I was a little bit disturbed by it. They were a couple that to me, I don't know how I feel about them. Them being married for a year is very telling for me because I'm thinking, okay, there's obviously something that's working within that relationship. I'm not sure what it is, but they're still together and they seem more committed. They kind of feel like Barnett and Amber on that like first or second season of Love is Blind. I did not think they were going to last because they just had so many incompatibilities with finances, but they're still, you know, they're still lasting. They're still working. So I feel like Kwame and Chelsea, they're so invested in that story of like being a couple that's happy. They might just make it for like
oh my gosh, holy moly. Okay, that's a really interesting take, but I'm totally with you. I think there was like a scene way back in the season where after that pool scene happened, where everyone met each other at the pool, and then there was like a second party where they all got together again, another party where they were all meeting each other after that pool scene, and Chelsea and Kwame were being much more like coupley together and Kwame was like kind of avoiding Micah a little bit. And Micah says to the camera, she was like, there's something weird going on. Feels like there's like this weird overcompensation kind of happening with Chelsea and Kwame. And I think that like really nicely summarizes their relationship, or at least what we saw in that season finale reunion. It felt just a little bit like their relationship was such a mess, and rather than acknowledging it, they were like overcompensating by being like, look how perfect we are. See, we're so confident. See, we're so secure. So I'm a little bit, it makes me a little bit nervous, and both of them are such good presenters. Like, they're both very articulate. They speak very well. Like, both of them are very intelligent and good orators, you know? Like, they're just good public speakers, I feel like, and I felt that way throughout the season. So in this live scene, there was almost like an element of like presentation, as opposed to scenes we saw when they were like in the house. But like here, it felt like they were like, let us present ourselves and our relationship to you, and let this be the final thing you will know about us. And so something about it felt just a little bit like, there's something concerning about a couple that's not really willing to own their history and own their past and own their story for what it fully is. And to me, that's what this couple kind of feels like. It felt like they have not yet fully acknowledged the full picture of what has happened in their relationship. So I'm a little concerned, but you're right. Maybe they'll just keep doing that and keep being like a little bit glazing over the surface.
Because I don't think they should last, but they probably will, because they're just so concerned with how they're coming across. They're very performative. I know they're in love, but is it the kind of love that would make them these healthy, actualized people? Probably not. It will service them. It will give them like a life and a home together. And, you know, despite the reunion giving them a halo effect, the scene that I will always think that characterizes them best as a couple is when Micah came up to them when Kwame and Chelsea were talking. And Chelsea was like, oh, baby, can you please take the food out of my mouth? Do you know that scene? And he was like, oh yeah, I got it for you.
Mommy, can I have a minute with Chelsea? Hold on, he was just getting something out of my teeth. Did I get it?
Hold on, baby.
Grab that toothpick and dig in there.
I know, I was going to.
Can you get it, please?
I look at it. Bottom lip. Yes.
That scene was so symptomatic to me of this is them as a couple. The way that they laugh just feels a little bit, they have like you know when you code switch when you're doing business meetings and you talk a little different? Their laugh is like that. The way they talk is like that. And I never liked them as a couple. And as a relationship coach, there's nothing about them that I would think, wow, like this is a couple that people should learn from. There's none of that. I just think, wow, you know, they're on reality TV and they're famous, so that's good for them.
Good way to put it. Good way to put it.
Got your job done.
All right. What do you all think about Chelsea and Kwame's relationship? What did you think about how their story ended in this season? And do you think that that's going to last? Let us know down below in the comments.
So now we move into the person that was involved in their love triangle, Micah, and her relationship with Paul. So throughout the entire season, they really got along. Micah, Netflix presented them as the quirky, cute couple. They seemed like the poster couple for someone that was actually going to get married. Micah just seemed like this mean, popular girl in high school that was outgrowing her toxic traits and falling in love with the nerdy kid who was paired up with her in science class, and they meet like years after college. So their whole vibe, it was very hard because in the pods, she came off so sweet, so demure, and very intelligent and just in touch with herself. But then we see her in the house paired with Irina, and she was awful. Like, she was really competitive towards Amber, who was the other person that Paul was dating. They had this like Mardi Gras day, and Irina and Micah, the way that they spoke about that, it's truly so grotesque. I have not seen this behavior in reality TV in such a long time. And it's not like people don't do mean stuff. It's the fact that it was so malicious. It was so bullying, and it just feels a little bit like middle school and high school bullying in a way that like it's traumatic. It's not good to be around people that are that insecure that they're taking it out on people. So Micah's storyline was so interesting because she seems like this nice, sweet girl, but then we see her being really manipulative, really rude, making awful jokes to Kwame, like the way that she broke up with him, the way that she basically told Paul, it's me or Amber. If you're going to choose me, you need to break up with Amber like right now. It just felt confusing. I was not sure to make with her the entire season. So, you know, when they met, they seemed like they were really attracted to each other. They had a few hiccups with Irina flirting with Paul, and the way that Micah handled that situation was a little bit weird to me, because I would probably not let that person continue to be my friend. And Micah, I think, you know, she said that I'm still going to keep Irina as a friend no matter what. Just very bizarre to me. Like, I don't understand Micah as a person. I don't understand her decision making. And it felt like the entire season I was trying to make sense of them as a couple, because it seemed like they were very cute and sweet and affectionate towards each other. But, you know, Paul is this scientist. He said that his exes are these girls that like brew herbs and they have kombucha and their dresses, like their clothes match this persona. Michael is far away from that. So I was just trying to think, okay, what are they getting in this relationship? Editing is showing them as this picture perfect couple, and I'm just not seeing it, because he seemed so logical. He seemed so absurdist. He seemed so aware of himself. And she is associated with people like Irina. She has friends like Shelby, people that make fun of Paul. She didn't defend Paul. She was like, you know, Shelby has my back. So, I don't know, like the relationship just also felt very like Freudian, with Paul's mom being so similar to Micah and Micah's dad being named Paul. I was like, what is happening? With this entire relationship itself, it's not meant for marriage, but it was meant for some kind of relationship. I just was never sure where they were going to go. I had no idea what they liked. Like, I knew that Paul would say always in his interviews that they were always missing each other and they love each other, but they never felt like they had any chemistry. I wasn't totally I wasn't totally shocked at the end when she said, I'm going to let you choose if you want to say yes to me or not. And then he said no. I was unexpectedly surprised when he said it's because he never pictured her as a mom. The entire relationship just felt very much like, what is happening? I don't know what's going on. I don't even know if Micah likes him that much, but she seemed really devastated at the reunion. She seemed devastated towards the end. So yeah, like all in all, I think never a good couple from the beginning. I never really saw what people were seeing in them. And towards the end, I felt like she was throwing him a little bit under the bus and trying to make it seem like he was also being really negative, when to me, I feel like her biggest red flag was how she acted around her friends, like Irina, around Shelby. And I don't know, I think that the company you keep says a lot about you. And she was telling us one thing on camera, but then the way that she was acting with the people that she puts into her life was totally different. So just very confusing.
Yeah, I am with you. I thought that these two were a really interesting couple. I never really bought it personally. I think that they just always to me seemed too different. Like, she was just so like high school catty, mean, popular cheerleader type girl, and he was just like, he was like a nerd, but like a hot nerd. So he was just like, but he was just like scientist, like hot scientist guy. And so they just seemed, he was just so logical and very cerebral, and she just seemed like kind of catty and just kept making fun of his clothes and like just talking about how she wanted to like dress him up and change everything about him, and his apartment was ugly, and like she just seemed very, I don't want to say shallow, but like just the things that she was concerned about and talking about in life seemed so different from the things that he was talking about. Like even his conversations with the camera and with his friends about trying to make the decision and weigh the risk of choosing her versus not choosing her, saying yes versus saying no. It was just so thoughtful and logical and really trying to think about how he would feel in these different scenarios. It was just so, you could just really see he had so much depth. And we just never really saw that from Micah, which is funny, though, because he said several times to the camera, like, oh, she's just like me. She has the same worldview as me. And I was like, does she? Like, I was so confused.
I
like,
was
why he
stopped. I was like, when is he saying these things? Because I would never see it in their conversations.
I mean, maybe we just didn't see their conversations. Maybe Micah's secretly super deep as a person. I don't know. We never really saw it. I mean, yeah, so it just seemed like a mismatch to me from the get-go, and it seemed like, frankly, she was very critical of him about like lots of different little things, and he like took it on the chin like a champ, but it did really feel like when he said the thing about not being able to see her as a mother, it seemed like a surprise, I think, because he had not talked about it, but that seemed consistent with what we're observing, what everyone observed, which is that she has this kind of like mean girl, like catty, like snipping around with her friends type of attitude, and she just was so concerned about like these various little aesthetic things in Paul's life. And so it actually seemed consistent, even though the motherhood thing was a very specific thing for him to hook onto. And in the reunion, I was like, Paul, shut up. He was like just burying himself with a fucking hatchet, just like explaining, yeah, I don't know, she just wasn't nurturing and I need her to be naturally nurturing. I was like, just shut it, man. Like, you don't need to, there's no reason to like, just stop. Like, it's just making it worse. I'm sure Micah would be a lovely and wonderful mother. But what I will say is, I think that our observation about their relationship, at least to me, was seeming to be quite accurate based on the fact that that little thing that came out of his mouth when he broke up, it seems like that is very consistent with what everyone was observing, or what we were observing about the nature of their relationship and how imbalanced it seemed, or how different their personalities seemed. And then I think the thing with like the friends, I think you're so right. Like, your friends say so much about you, and it just, the way that both Irina and Shelby and that other girl, they all seem to bring out the worst in Micah, frankly, and the fact that Micah would continue consistently choosing to be with these people and nurturing relationships with these people. I think that just says a lot about Micah's, inner personality, right? That's just kind of who she is. If she would choose to be around people like that and clearly enjoys the company of people like that, I think that just says a lot. And so in some ways it's like, okay, yeah, Micah wasn't the one like shit talking anyone, but it's like if you're laughing at the girl and hanging out with the girls who shit talk other people, it's like you're just contributing and you're allowing that behavior to fester and to go unchecked, right? Every time she laughed at Irina's mean jokes, she was telling Irina, keep going, this is great, it's okay for you to be this mean, and it's mean girl behavior.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue it's just as bad because she's encouraging that behavior, and Irina kind of felt like a minion to Micah in some ways. The only thing that Paul could have done better was actively talking to her about those problems, but he never did. To me, it just kind of seemed like he was just focusing on the positives. He never told her a lot of these things in the moment throughout the relationship. It felt like they were just riding the high and kind of like in puppy love, where they weren't really talking about big things or having big discussions. And that's kind of red flag. If you can't bring up these things about your partner and kind of lovingly call them in and say, I noticed the behavior around your friends is not okay, and that's not the kind of friends I have. I want to talk to you about it because, like it or not, but that is an indicator of your value system. And I don't know if I agree with your value system, and I want to be with you, but I want to understand more about you and like how you're going to defend me to your friends. He never said that. It kind of seemed like he brushed it off, and that is very disconnecting. So like they were never a good match. They were never a great couple, and I'm glad they're not together now. But yikes, it was just a weird dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really totally agree with what you're saying. The fact that I was just saying, like, it was cool to see how much Paul was talking to like his friends and the camera, talking about all of his different apprehensions, but it's like, did you talk to her about any of that, or are you just talking to everyone else in your life trying to decide what you want to do? And that's always, to your point, like a red flag. It is a thing that people do all the time. It's like they'll have a problem in their relationship and they'll talk to everyone else about it. They'll talk to their friends, they'll talk to their mom, they'll talk to coaches like us, they'll talk to everyone about it except for their partner, the only person who is going to be able to address that, right? They'll come up with all these theories about what's going on, and they'll tell us all about the different tiny things that they're concerned about, and really get into the minutia of what this means for the relationship long term. None of that detail, none of that thought goes to the partner, so the partner can't do anything about it. If the partner doesn't know what's going on, they can't address any of those concerns. And so, yeah, to Micah's credit, it's like if Paul had told her, you know, to your point, Julie, I kind of agree that it felt like maybe Micah could have grown through her relationship with Paul, and that maybe she could have, like, you know, grown out of some of her, like, more toxic behaviors. But, you know, she can't read his mind. If he was thinking all that, like, you know, he should have told her, and maybe she could have met him. But his point was like, oh, well, she should want to be that way naturally. And it's like, I don't know, this is like such a pitfall. Couples have this all the time. They're like, oh, my partner should just naturally know what I want them to do. They should just intuitively know, like, what I need and, like, what matters to me. They should just intuitively know that if they love me enough, or if they're, you know, a good partner, they'll just know what I want. And it's like, that's not how life works. It just isn't how life works, right? He was like, oh, well, then she would just be changing in order to, like, meet my needs. And it's like, she wouldn't be changing her personality. She would be understanding your needs and then figuring out ways to address them, which is what happens in relationships, right? None of us are going to come together and fit perfectly, right? We're always going to need to figure out, like, what is it that you need? And let me see if I'm able to deliver on that. Where can we meet in the middle? But it has to be a conversation. We can't just expect that we're going to click in naturally and I'll just know everything that you need without you telling me. And that's, Paul said it like he was like, oh, I know how this works. She's going to resent me if I ask her to do something and she does it. And it's like, what? No one's going to, like, you should not be resentful of meeting your partner's needs. And, like, the fact that he thought that she was going to be resentful, I think also says a lot about the fact that they were just not, it felt like they didn't have a lot of trust in each other, a lot of faith in each other. He didn't have a lot of faith in Micah's ability to meet him in a higher place. And that's why he dumped her, right? At the end of the day, it seemed like he just really didn't have a lot of faith in her.
So well said. And, I mean, tell us what you think down below. Do you feel like you were bought into Micah and Paul's love story? Do you feel like they were believable at any point? Let us know down below.
Okay, so let's get into our next couple, which was Zach and Bliss. And also we'll have to talk about Zach and Irina as well as part of this, because this was another love triangle in this season, and it was a pretty dramatic one. So basically in the pods, Zach had strong relationships and strong feelings for both Bliss and Irina. He had to make a choice between the two of them because they both clearly wanted to get engaged to him. He ended up choosing Irina. It was kind of like Bliss was like the good girl, good fit for him, and Irina was a little bit of like the hot bad girl fit for him. And it seemed like I think he didn't say it in quite these words, but I think basically what happened was he was nervous that Bliss and her, like, you know, very, you know, stand-up family might not accept him. And versus Irina, who is kind of a shitty person, he was like, well, she'll definitely accept me no matter what I do. And so it felt to me like he kind of chose Irina because he was like, well, at least Irina won't judge me. And I'm worried that Bliss and Bliss's family might judge me for not meeting their standards. And so I think that's I think Irina being a shitty person is kind of part of why he went to her, because he, I think, felt a little bit safer to kind of fuck up, mess up, whatever it might be with Irina versus Bliss. So that's my hot take on why he picked Irina first. But he picks Irina.
I agree with you.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
But he picks Irina. They have a very short-lived engagement. They very immediately, it's very clear that it's not there. They're not clicking. They're so different. As soon as they're physically together and able to see each other, it's clear that there is no, like, actual body language chemistry. They are just so, it's like the way they move, the way they talk, everything about it is so discordant, and they're clearly from such different universes. And it only becomes clear, like, to me, I hadn't really noticed this when they were in the pod, but it became so clear as soon as they were physically in person. I was like, oh no, bad fit. And I didn't actually realize that when they were not physically in the same place when they were talking in the pods, but they quickly realize it too. They end their engagement. It's kind of Zach who chooses to end it, although Irina, it's because he realized that Irina was out of it. And so they end it. Zach ends up going and pursuing Bliss. They get engaged and they get married. And so that's kind of the main storyline for these three. And it was a really interesting triangle to observe.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it felt like with Zach and Irina, they were just a disaster from the get-go, because it seemed like, much like Micah kind of gunning for Paul because of Amber, Irina was going for Zach, not out of love, but out of pure competition of Bliss. She was really competitive towards her. There was a cupcake incident where she was trying to take a candle. Little comments that she would make throughout the season when they were living together in the pods that made it seem like, oh wow, Irina is not as into the idea of being loved as a person as she is about putting other people down so that she could feel better about herself. That seems to be the way that she gets a lot of validation. And she is so full of insecurities that it became so apparent with her behavior that the way that she handled herself, that she just wasn't attracted to Zach. And instead of treating that with consideration, she bullied him and she made him feel awful about himself. And I can't get over that. Like, I know that Zach, you know, like when they had broken up and they were in the bathroom and they were just talking about each other, about like, we hate each other. We're like this married couple that can't stand each other. They were both really piling on, but it felt like for me, the way that she had treated him was just so exacting with his trauma. The way that she made fun of him for finishing food when he grew up around a lot of food poverty and just a lot of food insecurity was not okay. The way that she would cringe at any physical act that he did towards her, whether that was kissing, whether that was hugging, the way that she spoke about him to her friends, to everybody else, it was so inappropriate that I feel like, you know, it's definitely forgivable because they have forgiven her. But that behavior said a lot about her, and I don't believe that she was looking for love. I felt like she was looking more for fame, and that as soon as she saw that Zach wasn't her type, because, you know, these cameras are on you 24/7, it's hard for her to, like, stay true and hold strong to what she wanted to present herself on TV. And, like, her, you know, her nasty and her insecure bits kind of came out, and she really projected a lot onto Zach, because who we choose as a partner is a reflection of us as a person. And because she had seen Zach as someone so below her, she was like, I don't even want to be associated with him. So all of those memories, all of that credibility that they had grown together, she just kind of pushed it to the side, because she was like, I do not want to be associated with someone like Zach, who I feel like is so unattractive, who looks like a cartoon character, who I can't kiss, who makes me squirm. I don't know, like, I just felt like the way that she was speaking about him was just so, it was really rude. It was so rude. And I just felt like it was so out of bounds with what the stuff that he had talked to her about and how he had kind of positioned her. It was like they both activated the absolute worst sides in each other, but it's like Irina did it intentionally, and it was like Zach was reacting to all of her bad behavior, because I would say that he gave it a fair shot. After they met each other, he was like very much being like, oh, I want to make you comfortable. If you're not interested in physical intimacy, I will take it at your speed. He was very much considering her and kind of like, can we make this work out? Even though, you know, he did think, and I believe to your point, Kelly, he chose Irina because he didn't feel good enough for Bliss. So he was like, this is the person I deserve. But he didn't deserve shit, you know? Like, the way that she treated him was like, I've never been treated like that in a relationship before. I've never seen that this kind of behavior on a reality TV show as bad as Irina was. But yeah, like, she said and did some things that she should have known based on his stories in the pod would have really triggered him and made him feel really awful about himself. And I felt like she was just kind of trying to save her image, you know, on the reunion.
I have a hot take. And
tell me.
I feel like the internet is gonna not be happy with my hot take about this. I kind of disagree. I actually don't think that... Okay, I think Irina sucked. I mean, I think she was real mean to a lot of people. I think she was basically mean to every single person she interacted with, including her one friend, Micah. I think she was awful. However, I actually think that in the relationship with Zach, I think she got a lot of slack for how she behaved in that relationship, when I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that she was just uncomfortable with Zach, and actually feeling that feeling of, I am in a relationship with someone and I've kind of committed to someone who actually I feel this instinctive like repulsion to. And we can argue about whether or not it's okay for her to feel that way over how attractive he is or isn't or whatever. But being forced to be affectionate with someone who you are repulsed by, I think is a very triggering experience. And being forced to be in a situation where you have to lay in bed with someone who you are not feeling and who you are not, you're just not feeling that pull and not really having a way to get out of the situation, I think is really, really difficult. And so do I think she handled it well? No, not at all. But I know for sure that I have been in situations where nice guys have wanted to date me and I was like, he's a nice guy, so I should just try. And then I would try. I mean, this is me in high school. I would never do this today, but me in high school. And I would try, and then I would realize, like, he would touch me, and I'd be like, oh, like, this isn't actually, like, I am feeling like there's something about it that's not feeling right. And I would react in that way of, like, just, like, realizing, like, oh, my gosh, I'm having this physical reaction of, like, I don't want that touch. And it's really hard to make sense of. And, of course, like, as you grow up, you just realize, like, you need to be able to have your boundaries and realize that I should not enter into relationships with people that I'm not comfortable with. And obviously the show kind of flies in the face of that because you don't actually get to see anyone before you start having to have a very physical relationship right away. But to me, I saw a lot of Irina's behavior, like, I resonated with it resonated with a younger version of myself where I almost like felt the need to, like, felt like I couldn't escape the relationship, and I felt like I wanted to be in a relationship and I wanted to make it work, but my body was saying no, and I was mentally trying to make it work even though my body was saying no. And I think what was happening with Irina was something along those lines, and I actually believe that she did want to see if she could come around on Zach. I think that she was clearly not attracted to him when she first saw him. That was very obvious, and then throughout getting to know him, she was like continually learning more things about him that was giving her the ick, and that she was like completely just not interested. But I actually think that she was trying. I think she wanted to see if she could get there with him. And it was only after she like interacted with Paul that she realized, like, oh, like, some people, when I'm with them, I'm naturally like touchy and flirty, and with Zach it's just not there. And so that to me was like, I think where she like realized it, that it was like something was like really not working there. But the fact that she was continuing to like stay in that relationship and try to make it work, I think that she thought maybe I will get over this like physical attraction thing and I will start to become comfortable with him, but it just never happened. And to me, that's not something that you can fault him for. Now, a lot of the other things that she said, like the stuff like making fun of him and how fast he eats his food, and there was a lot of things that she said that was like bullshit. But like the fact that she was trying to make it work, but she was ultimately just not feeling it with him, I just don't think that that's something that we can be at fault for. Like, I cannot fault Irina for a physical reaction that she has to someone's touch. And different people are different or have different reactions to this, but there is something really visceral about being touched or someone trying to kiss you that you don't want to come at you that way, right? If someone that you don't want to kiss you tries to kiss you, like, there's a visceral reaction. And even though she knew that obviously he's like a nice guy, he's not gonna like push himself on her or anything, it's a very unsafe feeling. It's a very unsettling feeling. And the fact that she was like, oh, well, I should let him kiss me. He's my fiance, so I should. And so I am not as upset with Irina for those parts of it, like hiding her face under the pillow. I do think a lot of it came from her trying to make it work past the point where she should have just realized, like, this is not going to happen. And, like, she should have realized that it was time to pull the plug. The fact that Zach had to pull the plug, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, and I'm glad that he did. Quick aside here, this article that is on the screen right now, this article came out, or we discovered it after we had recorded this conversation, but the article is a deep dive on the behind the scenes of how Love is Blind is recorded, and it seems like it's not so easy for cast members to just remove themselves from the situation. Apparently, they're contractually obligated to stay and can be fined tens of thousands of dollars if they choose to leave before the producers are ready to let them leave. And so that kind of supports this theory that maybe it's not so easy for Irina to see that she's not having a connection with Zach and go just because she wants to. So just something to keep in mind, something interesting. We didn't know about this prior to having this conversation, but an interesting point that is definitely relevant to what we're talking about here. We'll leave the link to this article down below. I'm not as upset at Irina for what happened in her relationship with Zach as I am versus everything else she did to everyone else I thought was heinous and awful. But I think the Zach thing, there is something more nuanced, I think, going on there, is my hot take.
Yeah. And I love your hot take, and I agree that I have compassion for it. But the way that she pushed past so many lines to express that repulsion is what I don't agree with. Like, yes, you might be in a relationship where you feel uncomfortable. You don't get to talk shit about them. You don't get to scream in their face when you try to kiss them. You don't push them away and give them mixed signals. That speaks to a level of maturity, because even if we did exhibit those behaviors when we were younger, she's 25, 26. It's a little bit different in terms of the responsibility of what she was entering into. Like with this show, it's an experiment to fall in love. And if she genuinely feel like she couldn't give that without cruelty, she should have backed out of it. And her trying to do it is malicious, because her trying to do it and treating him poorly so that she could give herself the experience that she needed is selfish. Like, for her not to have that hindsight and for her not to have the people around her that are checking that in for her was not okay. And that's why because I feel like when I watch these reality TV shows and they see these villains, I usually have so much like, you know what, it's editing, it's all of these things. But Zach shared a lot of vulnerable things about him as a person, and he shared a lot of stories about not feeling good enough, and that they both talked about how attraction was not going to be a determining factor of what they felt for each other because of how deeply they built this emotional connection. And then for that to fall out of the wayside should have been the first indicator to Irina, I am not ready to be in a relationship, and I know that if I'm choosing to be in it, I just know the person I am, and I'm not going to be able to give him what he's looking for. Her not doing it to me was like, because I have so much compassion for her. Yeah. And at the same time, I am holding her in that space of like, you need to reflect. And yes, it's not easy to be in a relationship where you felt like you needed to work it out, but honestly, like, grow up a little bit. It's time to grow up and kind of like, I don't want to be in this experience. It's going to be awful for him and me. And this is me being adult about it. Instead of doing what she did, which was just go in it anyways and then just treat everybody so badly. And I really do feel like with Zach, it triggered a lot of his bad behavior in the way that he was kind of interacting with her. I mean, if I was in a relationship with someone that was like that, I would also be really shitty. And I would also be like, you're treating me like this. Well, this is how I'm going to react to you because you're toxic and I'm interacting with that toxic trait,
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess for me, I just have a little compassion for her because no one has been in this type of situation. It's like a completely, like, no one can really understand what this is like to, like, bond with someone emotionally and like think you've fallen in love with someone, and then you get to the point of being in real life and actually they're not someone who you would typically be attracted to. And I think that is something that we can all point and say like, oh, what a shallow bitch. Like, I think it's really easy to do that, but like if you really
not
think
shallow, but I think her meanness was what took it over.
Her meanness, I agree.
Yeah. Like, I felt like her meanness was so... Because I never talk badly about TV characters. Her meanness was so... It was so apparent for me. Like, I had never seen that type of meanness before, and I just really hated seeing it on TV.
No, you're so right. She was heinous. I mean, I think, like... Yeah. I don't know why I'm dying on this hill, but like I do think that she was like overall really awful. I think that there's something in particular about her dynamic with Zach. I think her dynamic with everyone else, I like think she was just awful. her dynamic with Zach, I just find to be a little bit more nuanced. Like, even the things of, like, him leaning in to kiss her and her, like, yelling and pulling away. Like, I didn't take that as, like, she's yelling at him for trying to kiss her. It's like, you're in a social situation, someone just tries to kiss you, and you, like, don't know what to do, and, like, you just kind of, like, scream to, like, make it stop, right? And I think I kind of just, like, feel for her. And part of me was also like, why is Zach trying to kiss her when she's kind of made it clear that she's not comfortable yet with this? Like, why is he trying to make these physical advances on her when she's made it clear that it's not happening for her? She's, like, trying to move slow, and she even, you know, to your point of, like, taking accountability, even as early as the first time that they sat down on that bed and were talking about, like, she was like, it's weird that I'm not able to, like, engage in any physical touch with you, and I know that it's, like, really, like, not fair to you, and, like, I think it's, like, mean, and I know that it's, like, probably really hurtful to have me, like, pulling away from you so much, and I don't know why it's happening to me, and I'm trying to figure it out.
If you were like, Irina, when you touch me or hug me or hold my hand, I get uncomfortable. Like, I would be like, what the? I would, like, I don't know if I'd be able to be with you, to be completely honest. Yeah. You're a good guy, and you care about me for not, like, my physical appearance, but for my heart. Again, like, that's why I keep going back to, like, maybe this is just gonna take time. Maybe it's so new, like, just being physical together and seeing each other. I'm just like, Irina, pull yourself together. I just felt kind of bad because I felt like I was, like, kind of closed off to you.
So you could actually tell that she was thinking about it. She wasn't doing it subconsciously, or, like, she was very aware, and she was very apologetic about it. And she was like, yeah, if I were you, I would feel so awful. I don't know that I could be in a relationship with someone who is, like, repulsed by me the way that I'm clearly, like, unable to, like, meet you and be affectionate with you. And I felt like she was owning it in that moment. I felt like she owned it in the reunion. And yet I feel like Zach kind of didn't take any of that. Like, in that in Mexico, he was just like, I know what you're doing. You like to be in control. You're withholding affection because it makes you feel powerful. And she was like, oh, that's not really how I feel. And he was like, no, but I remember this is what you were like in the pods, and, like, that's what you want here. And I was like, why are you telling her how she feels? She's already telling you that she's acknowledging that it's not great that she's being so distant from you, and you're kind of, like, making up these stories about why it is, and she's telling you that that's not true, and you're still pushing those stories forward. And so I just I don't know, I just kind of felt like there was more nuance to that dynamic. And again, I'm not an Irina fan. I think she sucked. Like, she
Wait,
sucked.
now an Irina Stan account.
Like, no. I think she sucks RS. Like, I think she's awful. But I do think in the relationship with Zach, I think that making it seem like that the problem was that she wasn't able to meet his affection or be affectionate with him, I just don't think that that's fair to say. I don't think that, I think the fact that she ultimately realized that she couldn't get over this hurdle and that she didn't like him enough, I don't think that makes you a villain. I don't think there's anything wrong with realizing that what you thought you felt for someone isn't actually there. And, you know, I think it's okay to change your mind. And I think she changed her mind. And we can argue about whether that makes her shallow, that she changed her mind after seeing him. But I would argue it had less to do with just how he physically looked, but also all of it, like body language, the mannerisms, the different things. You know, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with Zach, but I just think that, like, I would argue that there is a physicality to a body language to the way that we interact with each other. And if you just kind of can't get there, then she shouldn't be forced. And she was trying, to her credit, she was trying to get there, which, like, kudos to her for, like, pushing through and trying to make it work. I think that she wanted to believe that her love would conquer all, and that's the lie of this show, right? That love is blind, love is going to conquer all, your love is going to help you get through all of these hurdles. And so I think she was just kind of buying into that and trying to see if that would work for her, and it didn't. And so part of me is like, grow up, but part of me is like, well, this show is kind of forcing people to behave in nonsensical ways. And so,
right.
Yeah. Sorry for all my Irina defense.
But I get the nuance with Irina, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I also didn't like the way that he spoke about her and how he was trying to analyze her. But he was like, he spoke about it to Paul. When me and Irina are alone, she's kissing me. She's totally affectionate with me. When the cameras are on, she acts a different way.
She gets super affectionate with me. And we get to the party earlier today.
Yeah.
And she's like super distant. She's all weird about me kissing her. We'd already kissed before then.
Huh.
And then we come back. She's like super affectionate. And it's like, what's going on?
So I feel like, to Zach's credit, he is kind of being in the situation where there's mixed signals. He's not totally hearing what Irina is saying. And I understand what it is like to be in a relationship where you feel, I don't think I'm into this person, being there, because I get it. I've had some friendships, crushes, where I literally feel so uncomfortable thinking about kissing them, having anything physical with them. What is the problem was, okay, but then how do you treat that person? Because in that situation, when she understood that she was physically repulsed by him, they have built this relationship. So could Irina not theoretically be like, I need to be honest with you, this is what I'm thinking? Instead, what she did was she treated him like any dude that that is friend zoning, that she has friend zoned, and he's trying to be around her, and it's uncomfortable. And they have this premise of marriage, so it's like, can you not have that conversation? Hey guys, we're back. I had a quick appointment, and now it's nighttime where Kelly's at, because she's in the East Coast and I'm in the West Coast, so it's still quite sunny.
Yeah, sorry about the lighting shift. But anyways, we're going to just keep going. But yeah, I mean, I think I see your point, and I agree with you. I think that overall, Irina was just like mean and awful to everybody. In general, I do think that she just like clearly does need to just grow up and stop acting like a high school mean girl. I do just think that it's okay that she didn't have feelings for Zach, and that it was hard for her to, you know, fake it. And I don't think anyone should have to fake it in a relationship. And I appreciate that she was like trying to see if it would develop, and she kind of gave it a fair chance. And, you know, I think maybe it could have got called off sooner than it did. But yeah,
Right.
that's my only thing with Irina.
Right. And I'm glad that you're saying something, because there's very few people are defending Irina right now.
The one Irina defender, it's me.
I know, it's only you. It's because, but it's like, to your point, like what she really did try to make a relationship out of whatever little connection she had with Zach. I just think that Zach was kind of spot on when he was like, I think you came on more for fame. Like, I think that motivated her desire to stay in the relationship more than anything else. It just seemed like, based off all of the cast members, she was so mean and rude to everybody. Like, she didn't have any friends. I think that the way the show vetted her was not proper. She should have never made it past casting, because it was really clear that she wasn't ready to be in a relationship. And this is what it looks like when you're not ready to be in a relationship. Hurt people, and she was a wrecking ball. She messed with Zach and Bliss. She messed with Zach. She messed with all of the other girls in the house. She didn't empower anybody. In fact, she disempowered people specifically because she felt so bad and insecure about herself. And I understand that she is going through a lot of personal issues. The problem becomes when she's not aware of it, and then she's taking it out on people, and she is hurting people and causing all of these traumas for people. And I feel like with Zach, I would be a lot more critical of him if he just wasn't treated so poorly by her, that it makes his actions seem like it makes sense why he was, reacting the way that he did, because nothing about his behavior outside of his interaction with Irina felt like he was a person that was malicious and was rude and was mean to the level that Irina was. Whereas like with Irina, how one person does one thing is how they do everything. She's just kind of mean to everybody and critical of everybody and like not really apologizing to people. So it's like, okay, this is a demonstrated pattern that this is kind of who you are and this is how you show up in relationships. And maybe you should maybe not be in a relationship until you fix the one you have with yourself.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I I don't know why I'm in this weird Irina defense.
I don't understand it either. I'm like, okay, Kelly, go off.
I can't explain. Listen, I agree with you about everything. That I think that she was awful to everyone. I just kind of think, like, even like what you said about like how like it seemed like Zach was mean to her too, but like it was excusable. I was like, I don't know. She was the only one who denied him something, so it makes sense to me why she would be the only one he would be bad to. And you know, if you're mean to someone just because they don't want to kiss you or whatever, I think that also says something about your character too. I also thought he was a little rude to Micah at the reunion. Like he kind of like was like implying that she was just like out for blood, and like I don't know, he kind of had like a weird take on Micah too, and I don't know. These are just stats.
I love that you're dying on the Irina and Micah hill. Out of all of the people to defend, I'm kind of like shocked.
I didn't think that this is where I was gonna go. I don't feel for Irina much in general, because I think that the way she treated everyone was just unacceptable. Her bullying all the other girls and like kind of double crossing Micah, her friend, and her like making these like rude comments about Zach's like appearance and eating and things like that. Like that stuff I think is all like really awful. I think that it's just like I think that I wouldn't classify overall the relationship between Zach and Irina as like Irina was just so awful to him. Like that's not how I would have interpreted that. Barring everything else that happened with Irina, like with the other people, I would not look at Zach and Irina's relationship specifically and say Irina was awful to him. I think they were both pretty insensitive to each other. And I wasn't particularly impressed with how Zach handled the situation either. And I think that when a girl directly tells you, I'm feeling really uncomfortable, I don't really know why, but I'm feeling uncomfortable with you touching me, and like I don't want us to move so fast, and he still kind of keeps pushing, I don't know, it just kind of gives me a weird vibe. And that kiss where she kind of like screamed and pulled away when they were like in public, that even to me kind of gives me a weird feeling the more I think about it, because the fact that she told him that she didn't want that, and then he did it specifically in this like public setting where there's like a big group of people, so maybe it'd be easier for him to get away with it or something, or maybe Irina like would be less likely to push him off because there's people watching. That makes me even more uncomfortable in some ways. So I don't know. So there was just something. I don't think Zach is a bad guy either. I just think that they were not very compatible and not being very sensitive to each other's feelings.
Yeah. You're right. Totally. You're totally right. And the only caveat I would say to that scene was after she screamed, then, because I agree, like, it's not okay ever. If you're saying, I feel uncomfortable, do not cross a physical boundary. You have to, like, ask for consent and permission and reciprocity. Otherwise, it doesn't feel good, and it's uncomfortable for someone that's bigger than you to be pushing and asking certain things of you. Like, it's not okay. But I think the only caveat I have in that situation is that in that moment, he told Paul afterwards, Irina was kissing me and was very affectionate with me without the cameras. So now in this situation, we're in public and I'm basically like going off of previous things. It's just different now that we're in public. Now she's pushing me off. Now she's screaming, and now she's like flirting with her best friend's person. Like, that to me was kind of like, okay, well, I want to give Irina so much, like, I'm looking for the compassion. I'm trying to be like, okay. Because you know how I'm like, I never bash any contestants. I'm usually like, it's editing. They're coming across this way. With Irina, I feel very differently. Like, I don't see that in her as much. And I understand exactly what you're saying, because I think in many contexts that is true. It just seems that with Irina, I think that she stayed in the relationship for something more than wanting to make it work with Zach. Because to me, it seems like her baseline behavior is like, what can I get out of this? And there's something that she's looking for. So I thought that Zach's fame comment was pretty, because a lot of people do go on the show for some level of fame. And I do feel like that was kind of what she was hanging her hat on. Like, okay, let me see if I can make this work because I've made it this far. I want more camera time. Maybe I want my story to be filmed, because not all of the couples that, you know, are engaged are actually followed. They have to do, there was 2 couples that actually weren't. It was like the 2 Asian, it was like the 2 Asian girls that they got engaged, but they never showed them on TV because the producers decide. So like maybe Irina.
Wait, are you for serious? I didn't know about that. Oh
I'm
my
serious,
gosh,
yeah.
rage.
We'll throw up something on the video. But yeah, there was 2 couples that were also filmed, and they do this every season. So every season they follow all of the couples that get engaged, and then they choose the people whose love stories are the most interesting to feature on Netflix. So with that in mind, Irina could be thinking, I know, right? She could be thinking, okay, like if I leave now, my love story is not going to get shown. And then it could be her being like, let me try to make this work, even though I know I don't like this guy. Because like, I think that she was giving a little bit of confusion to him. It was like, she would tell Zach occasionally, wow, sometimes in really backhanded negging comments, sometimes I look at you and I hate myself for saying this, but I think, wow, Zach's actually kind of attractive. You know, she said that when they were on the boat, and like little other moments where she would kind of like put him down as a compliment. I don't know, like I want to extend a lot of compassion towards her, but it's just not okay to be mean the way that she was being mean. So yeah, that's kind of what I have to say about Irina. I appreciate you defending her.
Oh my God, I'm kind of scared.
I know Irina might find you on the internet because you're the only one, I think. She's going to be going on social media and being like, where is the one person? And it's like, it's Kelly. And it's probably like Irina's brother is like a troll account. So thank you.
Listen,
but we need it. You need the perspective.
I'm not an Irina defender. I swear that I like overall think she really was awful. This was just my one thing about their relationship. And what I will say about like the fame thing, I think that's complicated. I still think that is a complicated situation, because I think all of them are probably on the show kind of to get famous, excluding like maybe 1 or 2, like a handful of them. But I'm sure most of them are going on the show because they want to be on TV, at least partially. Some of them, it's just like on The Bachelor, right? People go on the show because they know it can jumpstart their careers, right? To become influencers and so on and so forth. And so the fact that Irina is targeted for that as like, that's like a fault of hers specifically, it is a little bit, I don't know. I hesitate to like say that makes her heinous, because I bet that's probably true for a lot of these people. And so like,
but I have something to add on to that, because like even though they come on the show to be famous, if they have the love story, then they want to see it out because it's genuine. It's another thing to want to be famous, have a love story, and then purposely use it to without disregarding their feelings because it's furthering your agenda. I don't think any of the other people did it as much as, I mean, Jackie, Josh, and that whole situation that was a shit show.
We'll get to that one in a second here.
We'll get to that one. But with Irina, that's like the one thing, right? Because maybe Kwame and Chelsea, they feel like people that did that, but at least they're benefiting each other. At least they're uplifting each other. At least they're not trying to disrespect each other if the camera's on. Irina was like, I want to be famous and I don't like this guy, but screw this guy's feelings. I want my thing despite how he's going to be treated. It's like that nuance.
Yeah, I get what I totally get what you're saying. I guess I just like interpreted it differently. And it's hard to know like exactly what she was thinking. If anyone has receipts, please drop them in the comments. Like, what do you all know about Irina? Please let us know.
Me and Kelly are like,
we're trying to figure it out. But if anyone has any dirt or understands like exactly what's going on, because for me, it's like, sure, like one interpretation is that she stayed around longer than she should have because she just wanted to be on TV. But I would kind of argue that you could see that she was physically uncomfortable around Zach. So like part of me is a little bit like, I don't know. I think that if she, I mean, maybe, I don't know. People have done heinous things. So maybe, but I just like, to me, I just kind of believe her when she said that she was hoping that she would also find someone. Because like, listen, if I go on this damn show, it's like, yeah, I would hope. I mean, Partly I'm gonna go because it's cool to be on TV. Partly I'm gonna go because I'm like, what the heck is this weird experiment? I want to see what happens. And partly I'm gonna go because it's like, I hope I'm one of the 5 people in the end who has a happy love story, or apparently 7, but 2 of them weren't shown on TV. But I want to believe I'm one of those people who is gonna be like in a happy relationship at the end of the show. And I'm sure some part of Irina wanted to be in a happy relationship at the end of the show. And so I think that with Zach, do I think that, you know, she was head over heels in love with him at any point? No, of course not. But I think that maybe she thought that she could get there at least at some point. And Zach was the one who called it off, not her, which supports your point in the sense that maybe she would have kept it going. But I don't know. It's like it's hard for me to say. Like I can't make that assumption because you know we only know what we know from the show.
And Kelly, I'm glad that you have your perspective. And
Julie's like, you're fucking stupid.
No, I love it because it's having me think about Irina differently, and it's also extending more compassion towards her. And that's why, because like as a viewer, of course I'm snarky and I have my own opinions about things, but as a relationship coach, there's compassion and it's wanting to understand the nuance and the dimensions of the situation. And Irina is not a bad person. She's in a bad moment of her life because this moment of her life, she's really insecure. So yeah, she's like wreaking havoc on people. It is not good. It's like, wow. And it's on TV. She's always going to have this moment of time like memorialized, you know?
It's tragic.
So it's tragic. So I really appreciate you calling to attention that despite all of her bad stuff, she does have a heart. And of course she wants to fall in love. Of course she wants to find someone. She just did not go about it the absolute best way.
Definitely
and
not.
I think this is the thing too, like with the reunion that I noticed, it's hard to unpack these really specific moments because you know, it's been a year since all of that stuff happened. So there's so much processing, reflection, new meanings, understandings being applied to this situation. So even as you and me are going through all of these little details, it might mean something totally different to them. To us as viewers, it's so multifaceted. But in this moment, what I feel confident saying was that she was not ready for this experiment. I don't know how she made it past casting, but she did. And she became this like X factor that honestly like dragged down the show. Irina and Micah were like truly 2 of the meanest girls I've seen in a while, and mean just in terms of the way that they were putting people down. I felt that like anxiety that I would feel when I was in middle school and like the cool girl walks by and they're making fun of you. It's like that exact feeling, and they both brought it out in full force, and I think that's why so many people were triggered by them.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, it was like really gross to watch. It was really like high school mean girl shit. It's like, what is this? Y'all are grown-ups. Y'all are 25 or something. Like what's going on? Like how can you still have this energy? How could you still be bringing that kind of energy out? Like it was just like, so it's just it's just like embarrassing, honestly. I was just like embarrassed for them. Like, and it's on TV now. It's memorialized. So, you know, the only thing that I'll say, then I'm going to just stop.
Please get on your soapbox, Kelly. I'm rebranding Here to Find Love as like an Aria Stan account.
I'm sorry, I don't know what has come over me. I'm not sure.
I love it. It's amazing because I'm seeing her differently. So in this conversation, you've changed me. I'm a different person.
The only thing that I was going to add is that, listen, I'm a hard ass. You know me. Like, I have no patience for people who are jerks. Like, if anyone here has watched this channel, you know that I rarely let something go.
That's why I'm paying attention. I'm like, okay, for Kelly to care about Irina, I am missing something.
Yeah, if someone does something mean, it's so hard for me to let it go until they really properly apologize and seem to want to do better. And here's what I'll say is that Irina did seem like she did apologize pretty well on the show. She really took accountability. She really was like, yeah, I'm fucked up. Like, that was so fucked up for me to do that. I have no idea what was wrong with me. Don't know why I was being so mean to you, Zach. Don't know why I was being so mean to everyone. She really owned it all. And the fact that she even owned it with him when she was sitting with him in that bed being like, I have no idea why I'm behaving this way. This is like really mean for me to do this to you. I need to like figure it out. And like the fact that she had that self-awareness, like that's, I think, part of why, and then for her to come to the reunion and, like, really seem to, like, recognize, like, yeah, I done fucked up. Like, that to me, like, I'm like, okay, I'm willing to kind of see where she heads off to. There's other villains on other TV shows that I'm like, I can't with them. They're like really weak apologies. I can't handle it. But with Irina, I was like, you know what? I kind of get that maybe she gets it. Listen, I don't know if anyone else here has ever been anyone else here. It's just you here, Julie. But
hello. I can answer.
In my head, we're talking to all of you all who are watching this. But imagine like a time in your life when you were like just like egregiously heinous to people and with no real excuse. I think most people have a time in their life that they can probably think of and reflect on and imagine and remember, like, just, like, the really mean and awful things that they would do. And then imagine that, like, now you're you now and you recognize how just, like, awful that was. But, like, that time in your life happened to be filmed and put on television and it's going to be remembered about you forever. Like, I don't know. It's, like, it's I don't know. All right, I'm going to just let this go.
No, but it's a good point because in that meditation, I did think about it because I always think about this. Like, I was just an asshole to a lot of the people I dated when I was younger. And it wasn't like I purposely wanted to be. I was missing so many of the tools and techniques and communication that I have now that make me a better person to be in a relationship with, a friendship with, a working relationship, all of those things. I was just missing those skills because I didn't know. I did the best of what I had, but it was based off of really limited information. I may not have gone down to Irina's level, but I have definitely done things that I think about and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely the villain in some people's stories, and it's not because I intended to be, but it was just because of where I was at, how I was reacting in the relationship I was in, like that dynamic. So I totally get it, and I would hate if it was televised. It's like I don't
put on Netflix.
Like that memory is so. It's like a moment of time, and that moment of time, I don't revisit it because I've moved on from it. I reflected, and I can leave it in the past. Irina does not have the same luxury. My trigger was just seeing how she treated people so poorly. And I think it was how she made fun of Zach and how specific it was to his own trauma. That like about like making fun of him finishing food or making fun of his eye contact and like who he is as a person. Attacking that was just so atrocious to me. And it's always kind of hurtful when you tell someone something about yourself and then they pick up that fact and they weaponize it and they throw it against you. And they're like, I actually don't like this about you. And it's like, well, I can't change this because this is me. So then you're saying, all of these things. So that was kind of my hang up of Irina and why I was so anti-Irina. But now I'm just neutral with her. So I think this is that's how I feel about her.
Good landing place. Okay. All right, y'all. Let us know what you all think about Irina and the Zach and Irina situation. As always,
Please.
we are talking about these people, but we don't freaking know them. We only know we've seen these limited scenes that happen on this TV show. We don't have the full picture of anything. None of us know Irina. None of us know Zach. None of us know the truth about what happened in their relationship. So we can talk about it down below, but, let's be sensitive about the fact that these are real people, and they're real people who we only saw a little sliver of time of their lives. So just leave y'all with that. But please, I'm very curious what people have to say. So
we need to know because me and Kelly are just like, what do we think? Okay, so thanks for letting us know your thoughts about Irina. The great thing is that Zach does get a happy ending. This man that's been put through all of these trials, he meets Bliss, and Bliss is the appropriate name for her because she and him, throughout their entire dating relationship on the pods, they were really sweet with each other. They had a lot of really cool symmetries. The owls, that I Hope You Dance song that the moms dedicated for their wedding. Corny, but very cute. And they both have a very logical, but very funny and like nerdy side to them that I think complement each other super well. They're just quirky and they're really cute, and it was really devastating because you could see how much Bliss had invested herself in the relationship with Zach. It seemed like that was her only person. She was making him cupcakes. She was really making sure that he felt seen and heard. And what tripped up Zach was, you know, her saying that her dad has never really approved of a lot of her boyfriends, and that immediately triggered Zach because he dated a lot of women whose parents didn't approve of him, and that was so painful for him because of his unique background with his mom and her, you know, being a sex worker. Like, it was just hard for him to feel accepted for who he was as a person, and I really genuinely believe that's why he chose Irina over Bliss. But after Irina and Zach break up, he goes back to Bliss. They have very cute, awkward dates, and then it's like nothing ever happened. Like, I mean, something happened, but he proposes to her on a boat. They get engaged. They have the entire rest of the experiment. Irina is always hanging over that relationship, and I feel like Zach was able to address it quite well in terms of saying, like, yes, I did choose someone else, but you're not the second option. This is why I chose her over you, and it's not because I think anything less of you, it's because I think more of you, which is very confusing, and it is very difficult to digest that. But Bliss, to her credit and to her maturity level, she was able to take that in, and it was really beautiful. They have a great relationship, and I love how kind she was to Zach about his family and his eye contact and who he is as a person. She really appreciated him and really respected him. So I am just very happy for their relationship. They seem like they're doing well, and they genuinely, at the reunion, seemed like they had totally forgiven Irina, and they were saying, you know, look, this was a very, very small part of the relationship. We're a year into this other relationship that we have that's deep and profound and is actually real. So yeah, I think that's a really cool thing that Zach was able to get at the end of this.
Yeah, I agree. I like them. I think I really like them just kind of being two little, like, weirdos who found
They're
each
so
other.
weird,
right? And that's like the cutest love story, is like when two weirdos get to like find each other and just be in love. Like, that's the best. Yeah, and I thought that moment, like at the wedding where they danced to "I Hope You Dance" by Leanne Womack
was cute.
I cried. It was so freaking sweet. It was
Okay. It was so emotional. I felt like an amazing, like, music video almost. I was like, wow, like the editing all went towards.
And then they had all
Zach
the weddings
Bliss.
to that song.
Yeah, it was like, so it was cinematic. It was 360. There was like slow motion. I was enamored by them. I love them as a couple.
I thought it was great. I definitely cried. I mean, I thought it was so sweet. I could just imagine how meaningful it was to Zach. So I thought it was really sweet. I just love to see people getting loved and accepted. I mean, sweetly, Irina said it best. She was like, it was so great to see all of the things that, like, I, like, picked at you for were all the things that Bliss loved about you. And, like, that was actually, like, really awesome to watch. And it was like, that is true. It was, like, really sweet to see Bliss just, like, really accept and, you know, love that man fully to wholly after he had been so thoroughly rejected by, you know, this mean girl previously. So it was really, really nice to see. It was a sweet story. Okay, but the question is, do you think that they'll last?
I do. And maybe that's me being optimistic, but I genuinely feel like they did really connect to each other. And I also believe it's genuine and real about the fact that they wouldn't have said yes if they didn't, because it seems honest when they said, I don't want to get married again. This means something to me. I'm not just doing this to be on TV. My family's getting involved. My life is getting involved. And they are kind of like the perfect level of weird. And they really do support each other in very beautiful ways. So yeah, I definitely see them lasting and going the long haul, but you know, who knows? I feel like my predictions are always a little bit, it's 50-50 at this point. They could or they couldn't, and I wouldn't be shocked either way.
Yeah,
But what do you think?
I don't know. I'm rooting for them. I guess is what I'll say. I think Bliss is really amazing and incredible. I thought she was amazing all the way from the time of the pods. Like, she just seemed so... The way she handled the conflict with Irina was so mature, so level, so, like, she just clearly has so much inner skills. And I think... I like Zach a lot. I think he seems like a genuinely good guy. I do think that there are some moments where I feel like he has snipped at people as well. And so I am just hoping that the two of them just bring out the best in each other and they're able to, like, grow together. But yeah, I wish them both the best. I want to see, I want to see them blossom. So I want to see them dance. I'm sorry.
Trust me, they're dancing.
I have been listening to that song nonstop since that finale. I just can't stop.
I actually love that song. Like, that song is genuinely one of my favorites. It's always
it's a bop. Like,
it's a bop. It is so good. I hear that song and I just think, like, I want to see those mountains in the horizon. I just want to dance. I just want to be in love.
All right, let us know, y'all, down below what you all think about Zach and Bliss. Do you think that their relationship will last? What did you think about, how they got together and, what we saw of them in the after the final rose. What is this thing called? The
reunion.
The reunion. God damn it. Bachelor brain. Let us know what you all thought about them in the reunion. Okay, so let's get into Marshall and Jackie. These two were also involved in a love triangle that kind of seemed like that was in the past, and then it just completely blew up at the end of their journey. So Jackie in the pods had two guys that she was trying to choose between. One was Marshall and one was Josh. Marshall was kind of like the emotionally aware, like, good boy, and then Josh was more like the cool guy, bad boy kind of thing going on. And she picked Marshall, and they got engaged. They moved in together, but things started falling apart when they started to realize they have a lot of just different ways of handling conflict, I would say, and among other things. I mean, it sounds like things like got pretty toxic there for a hot second where they were kind of like really taking jabs at each other. They break up because Jackie decides that she wants to actually go back and pursue things with Josh. And so her and Marshall split off. And she is now, a year later, still dating that guy Josh, which is pretty dramatic. There's been some big revelations between these two, between Marshall and Jackie. A series of text messages that seem to be from Jackie to, like, a group chat have been leaked onto the internet. They addressed this in the reunion as well. And the texts are basically, like, Jackie and her friends, like, making fun of Marshall and making a bunch of, like, homophobic comments, and basically saying that they think Marshall is gay for reasons, like, very strange. It was all a very strange and just, like, gross homophobic explosion of texts. It was really awful. And that, I think, made a lot of people start to see Jackie differently in this situation. Now, granted, she had already done quite a number of things by this point, so I think not a lot of people were big Jackie fans by this point. Yeah, I mean, what did you make of all of this, Julie? I'm, like, curious, like, what you thought about their relationship. Not the text, but, like, at least, like, Marshall and Jackie's relationship overall, like, throughout the season.
I always thought that Jackie was a better fit for Josh, and it was just maybe their sense of humor. They were both a little bit more crass and light and kind of, like, juvenile, the way that they related to each other. Most are like, yeah, we're not emotional, we're kind of hard in here. They were just kind of bonding off of these qualities that I was like, wait, that's weird to bond on, like, toxic traits about yourself. But they were both really into it, so they seemed like they had a better alignment. Their senses of humor is aligned. I was pleasantly surprised when she picked Marshall, because Marshall, you know, he's a really good guy from what we saw from the pods. I was finding it interesting when they got together because they seemed like they really liked each other, but then they got into these weird arguments like when Jackie was breaking down because of family issues back home. It wasn't like an argument per se, but she really shut out Marshall, and she was not prepared for Marshall to be as involving as he was in terms of like really wanting to show up for her and make sure that she was okay. She was really taken aback by that. And then the second fight that I thought, I don't know if Jackie should be with Marshall, was when she was like, I need you to man up and I need you to be aggressive towards me in sex. That was not okay. That was really, really, really inappropriate. And how she judged him not being aggressive towards her, like how she judged that behavior said a lot about Jackie. How he responded to that, because she basically was like, you're not a man by doing that. And maybe that's why she, ascribed to those qualities of him being gay. I don't know what it was, but it went downhill from there. And it was really hard to see them as a couple, because I felt like when they got to meet Josh later on at that dinner where all of the at Chelsea's birthday, Marshall kind of exhibited some controlling behaviors. He was like, put on the jacket. And she was like, no, it's going to ruin my fit. And he was like, no, put it on. And it might have been him listening to her feedback about being a man, but that controlling tendency was not okay on his side. So it was very similar to Zach and Irina to me. They were just not the right fit. And by them being together, they were actually activating the worst parts about themselves. Yeah, it was not okay when she did not show up to the dress fitting, and the way she broke up with Marshall when she didn't give the ring back. Her not showing up to the reunion, and now her living with Josh and them being partners. I totally get it. The way that she handled it was just really immature. And I'm just kind of thinking, casting, how are you vetting these people? Because it was pretty clear after spending just a few weeks with Jackie, that she was so not ready to be in a marriage. And she said that with Marshall at the end, like, hey, I'm not ready to get married. So then why did she sign up for the show? If the show is theoretically this experiment that they're positioning it as, they should have vetted out people like her and Irina and Micah, and they didn't. And that's why the season was filled with so much drama and, chaos.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think?
I will say with Jackie, maybe she wanted to be married, but in that relationship with Marshall, he kind of said this at one point. It was almost like she wanted Marshall to be more toxic.
You're never aggressive.
That's not who I am. So
Okay,
if you
well,
can't
then
accept me
that's it then.
if you can't accept me for that, then I don't know what to tell you. But
When she was saying that thing about being aggressive, I think she was partly talking about sex, but I think she was also partly saying, in the relationship, I want you to be more aggressive, and not so touchy, because she's constantly describing Marshall as soft and sensitive and yada yada yada, and I think she just wanted him to have a more aggressive, I don't know, behavior or personality or something like that. And to me, it just felt like a girl who has been in enough toxic relationships that that's just what's familiar to her, and she now just seeks that out and wants that. And if someone isn't pushing her around or something, then she feels bored in the relationship or something like that, right? And she says this to Marshall. She's like, yeah, I just never really felt that spark from you. And I think it's just, I just kind of find it sad, right? There was one evening, I think after Chelsea's party, right, where Marshall and her come back, and Marshall's like, yeah, I just want to talk and understand what you want from me. And she's like, I'm tired, I just want to go to bed. And he's like, okay, but can we talk about this first? And she's like, no, we can talk about it tomorrow. And to be fair, I'm a big proponent of don't just force people to have conversations when they don't have the emotional capacity for it. So I will say, I was like, sorry, Marshall, I know you want to talk about it, but if she says she can't do it, then she can't do it. You gotta let that girl go.
Totally agree.
Right. Let that girl go to sleep, wake up tomorrow and have the conversation. If you force her to have it now, it's not going to go well. You're not going to be happy about where that conversation goes. But the thing about that was Jackie later says that moment was the moment for her that made her feel like it wasn't going to work out with Marshall. She was like, the fact that you just want to talk about your feelings so much, I'm not used to people just wanting to talk about their feelings all the time. You're always wanting to you know, talk about stuff. And it's like, the fact that she had a problem with that, to me, shows that she isn't quite ready to be in a relationship, because, you know, when you're in a relationship, you just have to talk about those feelings. You just have to, right? I mean, obviously she didn't have to, it's not like they have to do it right in that moment when the girl is falling asleep, but it's like, for her core issue with Marshall was that he likes talking about his feelings. Like, that to me sounds like, yeah, it's just like immaturity. It just sounds like, it's like just people who want to kind of like skirt by and like brush stuff under the rug, right? That's kind of the vibe I was getting from Jackie, which is funny because Jackie has a lot of feelings, and we hear a lot of, like, Jackie's, like, there's so many moments in this season where Jackie is, like, really dealing with a lot of emotions and sharing a lot, which I think is great, but I think it's funny that she thinks she's allowed to share her emotions, but not Marshall. So, and I mean, it makes sense to me, though. It all comes back to, like, these very just, like, awful homophobic comments that she was making about Marshall to her friends. Okay, I just have to, like, address this. Like, it really frustrated me to read that thread of conversation, because it's gross. I mean, it's acting as if it's, like, bad to be gay or bi or whatever. Like, well, what if he is gay? What if he is bi? Like, who fucking cares? Like, why is that something to laugh at? Why is that considered something bad in a partner? Like, it was so gross, and it reeks of homophobia, queerphobia, biphobia, and that's ugly. I just thought that was so fucking ugly. And, like, bi men shouldn't have to deal with that bullshit. No one should have to deal with that bullshit. No one should be made fun of for their sexuality or their gender presentation. That's just like some 90s bullshit. Like, we don't do that anymore in 2023. We don't make fun of people for their sexuality or their gender. And her equating his more sensitive and soft personality to, like, being gay, in addition to being homophobic, it also is just, like, perpetuating fucking toxic ass masculinity, right? It's just toxic masculinity, and the idea that real men don't talk about their feelings and they suck it up and they tough it out. It's like, oh my gosh, are we really still on that? Like, we all know that this is an idea that hurts everyone. It hurts the men who are shamed out of expressing their feelings, and it also hurts the women who are then forced to date these men who have no relationships to their feelings other than anger and aggressiveness. And it's like, I can't believe Jackie was just sitting there asking him to be a worse person. She was just, like, mad at him for not being a toxic man. Like, I just, oh God, it was just all kinds of awful.
It's so well said, and you couldn't have said it any better, because those are the same problems I saw of Jackie, and I would group her as an Irina Micah kind of flavor, the way that she was asking Marshall, like, hey, for me to be in a relationship with you, I need you to take it down a few notches with your development as a person. I need you to be, like, a worse person so I feel better about interacting with you, because when you're in a healthy relationship, it is really triggering because you need to talk about stuff. When you're in conflict, the person that is supporting you is going to be there for you, and they're going to be sitting with you as you're navigating all of your emotions, your stress, your anxieties, your fears. And it's very vulnerable to put yourself in that position. And she doesn't want to do that. She wants to keep her guard up. And when she keeps her guard up, it's hurting the other person who is heart open, and they're like, this is me and this is what I want. So it was really, really, really hard to see her asking that of him and just being so staunch in that belief. It was kind of unbelievable. Yeah. And I am very, very happy that she did choose Josh, because they have some stuff to work out together, because the way that Josh went around that relationship to go towards Jackie was really disrespectful. The way that Jackie didn't see that as a red flag of, like, wow, the way that you talked about it was not okay. Just so bad all the way around. So I'm not feeling it. I'm happy they're together. I'm happy Marshall's out of it. And I really liked what he said at the reunion when he said, I've moved on from it. It's a year ago. I'm happy. They're happy. I just need to move on. All drama aside, this is just, like, bad energy, and I don't need it in my life.
Yeah, I really appreciated that he said that too. I will say that Marshall had some interesting energy at that reunion. I don't know what you thought about this, but, like, to me it felt like he really came to, kind of like with Chelsea and Kwame, he really came to put on a presentation. I was like, this is a little much, but I'm gonna just, like, take it with a grain of salt, because he was wonderful throughout the season and he really tried his best. He had, like, a couple moments, like you said, of, like, weird possessiveness and stuff, and he did make that comment, that transphobic comment about Jackie's, like, jawline, But it sounds like the kind of thing...
Oh, you're right.
It does sound like the kind of thing that, like, he said it and immediately was like, why did I say that? So, like, I appreciate that. It sounds like he apologized in the moment and, like, reeled it right back in. I appreciate that he brought it up and owned it in this moment. It's not my apology to accept, but I do think that there is a huge difference between that and what Jackie did, because I haven't seen Jackie really back down from anything. Like, she really kept doubling down on her weird, like, anti-gay thing with Marshall, like, over and over. Like, she was, like, hammering it in the whole season. And so, versus it seems like Marshall, like, immediately understood, like, I really, like, that was, like, an awful thing for me to do or say. So those are my thoughts on them. I agree that I appreciate the fact that it's done and Jackie and Josh can just
Exactly. They kind of like self-select themselves out of this dating pool and they just get to learn whatever lessons together. But man, Jackie's homophobic comments to Marshall, it's hard. It's hard. Like, I know that Marshall retaliated in some ways as well, but yikes, the way that she was talking to him, and she still was trashing him on social media. So I'm like, okay, you're not really learning anything in this.
What I will say is that, like, Josh doesn't seem like a great guy either, just from, like, the little we saw of him. That's Jackie wanted someone toxic to be with, or she wanted Marshall to be more toxic. Josh seems to be toxic, so it's kind of like he is actually going to deliver on exactly what she wants. And so in that sense, like, they may thrive and be able to, like, live in a loop of just, like, being really awful to each other. And it's hard to say. Like, sometimes people stay in relationships for the wrong reasons, and I could totally see these two staying in this relationship for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, let us know what you think down below, your predictions on how long they'll last. And then we'll go to the next couple, the last couple, the happiest couple of the entire... This is Brett and Tiffany. What... Their shoulders must be tired because they're carrying this entire season in terms of, like, what the producers were aiming the show could do.
Well, so Brett and Tiffany were the most unproblematic couple on this season. I don't think they really had any drama. When I try to think of what their story arc is, I literally can't think of it. It was like they fell in love and then they got married. That was kind of it for those two. Like, they didn't really have any... She fell asleep in the pods when he was saying, I love you. That was a tough moment, but that was basically it. Like, they really didn't have much else going on in the way of, like, you know, chaotic storyline or anything like that. And, you know, it's not that they didn't have tough days. Like, we saw scenes of, like, you know, her crying and dealing with a lot of stress related to, like, work and moving and wedding planning and stuff. But, you know, nothing... I don't feel like I saw anything really from the two of them that, like, it was like a red flag or anything like that. I think for the most part, like, these two seem like a really sweet pair. They're both so good to each other. They treat each other well. They value each other, and they communicate well. They don't, like, they, like, are very mature and don't, like, make a big stink out of little things. Bert and I, like, every time we were watching their scenes in the season, like, anytime they came up on the screen, we were just like, this is literally boring, because they're just so... It's like, we get it, you're in love, let's move on. Where's the drama? Bring Irina back. Like, what is this? Like, kidding. But, like, I mean, they were just so... It was just the most... And that's what, you know, you and I always say this. It's like, healthy love is typically... That's what it's like. It's, like, pretty vanilla. You have your... You know, you have moments of stress and tension, but it's, like, there's not, like... It's not like this, right? Like, that's, to me, like, the biggest green flag is that your relationship is kind of boring because you're just so in love and good to each other. Like, that's a big green flag, and that's what I got from Brett and Tiffany. I was like, y'all seem happy. I'm, like, literally bored watching you on my television because you're so cute. And
right. And it was so lovely to see, like, their friends and family getting along, and it was lovely to see what secure, healthy attachment looks like in real time. Because when you're securely attached, you're not game playing. You're not wondering if they're going to call you. You're able to have the conversations that none of the other couples were able to have. And it was, you know, Tiffany being like, I don't know if this place is big enough for me. And then Brett being like, I can buy a bigger place in this complex if you like my apartment. I can just get, like, a 3-bedroom apartment. They were able to talk about her falling asleep in the pods. And then it was really cute when her friends were like, she's called Sleeping Beauty because she falls asleep anywhere and everywhere. So it was lovely to see just two people talk through things, move through things. Relationships are not easy, but they can be when you have the right partner. You can move through very tough things with a lot of ease and a lot of consideration because you're respecting each other, you're thinking of each other, and you're being thoughtful towards each other. So that whole relationship, it was kind of similar to Lauren and Cameron. A little bit different because of Lauren and Cameron, they were like an interracial couple. So they had all of these really dynamic conversations about where it was, what it would be like if they had children, what would it be like to raise, you know, a mixed child. So like I felt like Tiffany and Brett did not have the same conversations, but it was amazing to see Black love on TV. It was amazing to see what it was like for a good relationship to take place. And I definitely see them lasting, but it's 50-50. Like I said, if they lasted, I'd be happy. If they didn't last, I would also be totally not like unshocked about it because it's not surprising for reality TV. But I liked them together. I thought they were great.
I would be so sad if they broke up. They're the only couple that I'm rooting for. I think they're so cute. I mean, I'm joking that they're boring, but it was really, really nice to see them just like be healthy and in love. I really like these two and I really hope they last. And the other thing I will say about Brett that I love, like Brett and Marshall, it was so sweet. Their friendship I thought was so cute, and just the fact that they just kept lifting each other up. And I loved actually that the two of them had multiple conversations on screen talking about how important it is for them as men, and specifically as Black men, to be able to talk about their emotions openly and to have other like male friendships where they're able to talk about their feelings.
Not a lot of guys that look like us talk about stuff like this. True. To each other. Vulnerability. We got to set the example. We got to set the precedent that, you know, it's okay. It's okay to talk about your feelings and tell people that you love them.
That is something that is really hard for a lot of men to do. A lot of men are discouraged from having those types of deep relationships with each other because of people like Jackie and comments like what Jackie was trying to push out about Marshall. It's because of those exact freaking comments that men can be really fucking lonely and feel like they can't talk about how they feel and can't have relationships with, you know, the people in their lives. So it was so beautiful to me to see Brett and Marshall really demonstrate and exemplify beautiful, close, strong male friendship. I loved it. I just loved I think their friendship was the other love story I was like a big fan of on this season.
Yeah. It was so great, and I'm just so, I'm so happy that we had that couple to hang the season off of because they were beautiful, and I'm so happy for them. You know, I think the show should stick to what it knows. Stop trying to innovate. Just, keep to the premise, you know?
Okay, let us know down below what you all think about the core question at the heart of this, which is love blind? Can you fall in love with someone with appearances not being a part of it at all, or the physicality not being part of it at all? Let us know your thoughts about this core question down below. We'd love to hear what other people think about this. We got a few more videos exactly like this where we are analyzing either a specific show or season of TV, or we're analyzing one movie in a video. So if you're into this type of stuff, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you're subscribed to our channel so that way you don't miss a single one. We will also be back in June for Charity's season. We will be doing our classic episode by episode Bachelor recaps, which we cannot wait for, so you don't want to miss a thing. And we will see you in the next week or so with our next video. Bye!